Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of How to Sell Your Vision. My name is Moti Elkaim. I'm your host for this podcast series. As always, we are bringing you founders and VC partners who can share their experience on how to raise money and how to pitch successfully in today's market. And today's session is a bit different than all the other sessions because typically I'm interviewing tech founders. And today we have Jeff Tezak with us, who is the co-founder and CEO of Tiiga. Now, Tiiga is a brilliant drink that Jeff is going to tell us all about it. But unlike the tech founders, as you've understood by now, Jeff is from the CPG world, and he's going to walk us through pitching and investment and fundraising in the CPG world. So, Jeff, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Moti. I appreciate the time. Thanks for reaching out too and finding somebody in the CPG world to have a conversation with.
Yeah, of course. I know a lot of our listeners are dying to get some insight on how to raise in this extremely competitive market. Before we start, we spoke briefly, and there is a super powerful story behind Tiga and your vision and your mission and what it is that you're trying to bring to the world. I'd love for you to walk us through that. The baobab tree story you told me is just chilling. I'd love for you to take our audience through it.
Yeah, so our co-founder is actually from Burkina Faso. For everybody that doesn't know, that's in West Africa. And we went to graduate school 2015 to 2018. And we became really good friends. And during that time, I was learning a lot about his culture. He was obviously learning a lot about the US. But at that time, he introduced me to a drink that he had. We had always talked about, studying history, we always talked about what do you do for your communities when you go back or when you're working with them. And he ended up introducing me to a drink called baobab milk and honey. And he was like, hey, this is what we've used forever to produce energy or like provide energy, like satiation, all these other little micronutrient things. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. What does this have to do with anything? And he's like, well, I believe that the baobab tree can do more for us than anything else that we're trying to do. And I started to understand what he was talking about when I started researching where the tree was, what it is, how it grows. And so the baobab tree that they use the fruit from grows wild in Africa. And it also grows in rural communities. And it can be harvested and sold at markets, but it can also be mass produced or mass harvested in the sense of they can seed it down into the finer powder and then sell it through distribution. And so we had studied a lot about, how do you help people in the sense of not just giving a handout, but trying to provide economic opportunities. And for me and for Haruna, this was the most unique opportunity because everything else generally, you're changing landscapes. I think we talked about this, but like you're planting some sort of crop that potentially doesn't grow there. And this happens in Africa. A lot of the places where the baobab tree grows, it's pretty semi-arid. It's not good soil. And so they have to choose a lot of times to make an income on this crop that might not grow more than 1 or 2 years, or can we try to create value with the fruit itself, and then they now have a living to make. And so from the beginning, it was a pretty powerful mission in the sense that we knew that we wanted to create a popularity around this fruit and demonstrate its value to consumers around the world. Now, the hard part with that was that you have to find the problem that it's solving, because a fruit on its own isn't a lot. But there was a unique value to the baobab fruit, which I didn't tell you about, which is the baobab fruit, and everybody knows the baobab fruit from The Lion King. It's the fruit that Rafiki cracks open. It's not actually liquid, it's powder. So when it's ripe on the tree, it dries out inside. And so from a economic standpoint, from a shipping standpoint, from a shelf life standpoint, it's the most unique fruit on earth just there. So it has over a 3 to 5 year shelf life when you just seed it down into the powder. It obviously ships well because you're not shipping liquid anymore, you're shipping powder, but it also has unique value from a nutritional standpoint. So it's over 50% natural dietary fiber. It's super high in vitamin C and potassium. And so it started to be like, okay, there is a value to this fruit alongside what it can do for the communities. And so that made the vision or the purpose of what we were doing a lot easier. And then now it's just obviously trying to bring it to market. And that's where we'll talk about CPG versus other spaces can be difficult. But the core of why we did this, it made a lot of sense to me, and that's what made me want to do this.
Brilliant. So you successfully raised funds, you launched Tiiga, and the brand looks amazing. Walk us through the early stages of fundraising in the CPG space, especially in the beverage space which you are in. What is, if you had one tip for a founder who is about to go into an investor meeting, they are in your space, they're pitching a CPG product, what would that one tip be?
Sell product / traction. Yeah, is big in our space. It doesn't have to be amazing sales and traction, especially in the earliest stages, because obviously it's going to be hard to prove out something. Because in our space, it's obviously, we were talking cost intensive. So a lot of times at the beginning, you're not going to, get invested, even put in 50,000 and make 400,000, right? Like the unit economics just don't work. But it's about showing that you're able to sell product, get into specific retailers, or to sell a specific way online, and to really show that you're starting to gain traction in that product market fit, that people want your product. I think that's pretty similar in most industries. With ours, though, it's more relatable. Like we can't add users, right? Like people signing up for Tiiga
Right.
isn't gonna drive the needle. It's did people buy your product, and what are they saying about it, and do they like it, and is it solving something for them?
Got it. And you spoke about unit economics, and obviously money management in CPG is, I would say, a bit harder than in tech, because aside from the initial launch of the product in tech, you can sit, you can code, you can create a product, but in CPGs you have the added costs of production, of raw materials, of shipping, as you said, and the burn rate is, I would assume, much difficult to manage than in tech. How critical is for you in the early stages to demonstrate to your investors that you have a very solid go-to-market plan and business plan?
That's actually a really good point. I think that's the other key that we're focused on. And what I mean by go to market strategy is very fine tuned and focused on the channels that you see at what point in your product life cycle. So we've maintained one type of product for a while, because in our space it can start to look like you're just diluting yourself, and you're
Right.
overextending yourself, because each product that you launch is an extra potential amount of money, right? And so for us, it's being very strategic and saying, this is the core product, this is the core market, whether that's e-commerce or in stores. We found a lot of success, ironically, in direct to stores, and there's a lot more channels to do this now, as a way to validate our product at a minimum of the cost. Whereas where raising really comes in, and is important, is from the overall brand, is being able to advertise online, because in our space, advertising is the key, like the core cost. And so
Right.
you can't do too much of that before you've raised, because it's just, you would run out of money too quickly. And so for us, the go-to-market strategy is key in saying, okay, over the next 6 months, we're focused in this area with this product. Once we've established this, we'll add this product and move to this area, or start adding this, specific distribution network, things like that. Because if we try to branch out too far, that's where people start to think that you're overextending yourself, especially if you don't have the team, from a cost flow, from a budget perspective, that you're showing you're building that team out. So it's very important to have a succinct go-to-market strategy.
And that's interesting you're bringing it up, because I'm hearing from founders all around is that focus is key, regardless of the vertical you're in. If you're gonna go and try to go too wide too soon, like you said, you're gonna dilute not only your brand very early on, but you're probably gonna dilute your message and your appeal to investors as well. And there is no shame in being niche today. I actually think that being niche and being focused is an advantage for emerging companies.
Well, I think it's especially, I would say, feasible in the United States, right? 330 million people, you can be extremely niche. And I don't love the term niche, but I think it works in the US, right? If you're not in somewhere with 330 million potential consumers, like, we have the opportunity with one specific, say, channel or one specific demographic that you're really focused on to sell enough to provide that traction or that early adopter to move to the next stage. Again, in CPG, the hard part at the beginning is that we are kind of, how do you describe it? You are hamstrung because you do need to sell. So a lot of times you got to go to wherever you're kind of following the carrot. Okay, I can get sales here. I can get sales here. And so what I've seen, and we've done it a little bit, falling in the trap of try to do events or specific things that when we've probably tried everything, to be honest, you kind of see what works, but you have to do that only to a certain extent to not spend too much of your money or to maximize it and be as cost efficient as possible, and then pull back and say, okay, that didn't work, but we didn't spend too much in that process. What did work, let's go back down that, which I think is mainly what everybody tries to do in business, but really testing quickly and getting out of stuff, and learning. And then, like you said, on top of that, in CPG, not going to big, like everybody wants to get into Costco, everybody wants to get into Walmart, things like that.
Right.
And if you're not a famous actor, actress, like that is probably the worst. That is the way to kill your brand the quickest. So
Really interesting. Um, aside from the Baobab tree, you also have an interesting story. Your personal story is quite interesting. You were a baseball player, then a coach. Um, Speak to me about the importance of founder market fit in your space. Obviously, you're pitching health, nutrition is important to you. Was that an appealing factor? Is that something that founders who are considering starting a company in that space should consider before they go out?
that's a really interesting question because I've seen it both ways. Like I've seen, you meet different founders, and I've seen some founders that are extremely health oriented. They kind of lean towards the nutraceuticals more so than the, I would say, value added or niche products. Because a lot of the niche products are, say, I've created a new sauce or I've created a new type of noodle or whatever. And a lot of that is just now, especially in the States, is like cultural. There's a lot more cultural products that are coming out that are gaining traction, and that has nothing to do with that sort of background. I think where sports helps, like I said, is nutraceutical or better for you products, which most things are moving towards functional. So I would agree there. Like a lot of things are moving towards functional benefits. Like I guarantee there's probably not a drink that you consume anymore that is for sheer pleasure outside of maybe during a meal. It's generally like, is it a coffee? Is it a kombucha? Is it some sort of sleep nootropic thing, right? Like everybody's consuming things that are generally functional for them. But it is an interesting time because sports, what they do for you is, in our space, is I don't care about competition. Like there is no competition. It's whether I execute when I'm performing, right? And that's what sports taught me. And then it's to not quit during that. So I think that's where sports have been really beneficial, versus maybe I don't think credibility. I think credibility comes almost more from doctors if you're doing those types of industries where like you're saying, hey, I've created this greens drink that does this. Like I don't think the sports person has that same effect that potentially somebody that studied that space. But even that, I don't. This is all coming down to branding, I think, really, because what I've seen is like, um, you can always learn. Like I've learned more from other brands and founders that potentially weren't in that space, but they've done is studied it, and they present the information very clearly and succinctly to their customers, and that's their point of differentiation. I don't think their backgrounds necessarily say that they were a professional bodybuilder or they were a gastroenterologist, but they've studied the material enough, and it's that biohacking kind of industry that I think's kind of come
Yeah.
up, that I've seen a lot of that have done really well with consumers. Just want to have good information, and if you don't know the answer, I think they like just learning that you or having you teach them how to find that answer potentially, or to at least think differently.
That's interesting. You spoke about the word purpose, which is really key. A lot of the times when I'm working with founders, we're focusing on process transformation because in tech, and again, most of our audience is from tech. We speak about the process transformation. You're coming in with a tech solution to change the way things are being done, to introduce a new process, to solve a pain point. But with a drink like Tiga, there is a purpose. You're consuming it because you want a certain outcome, not necessarily doing things differently. Does that make sense, the difference between process and purpose? Is that something CPG founders should focus on in their pitch?
Yeah, for sure. Let me think about this for a sec, because I think at the end of the day, it's still core of solving some sort of problem, correct? But you just have
Right.
to figure out how within the business model that you're gonna solve that process, correct?
Right.
Is that kind of how you talk to them? So I think
Exactly.
for us, it's like when in a day, right? When in a day in that process are we going to solve someone's problem or help them make that change within their habits, their daily habits? And I think that's pretty key, because like really people are exchanging one thing for another at any point throughout their day, right?
Right.
And that's whether it's a consumable or not, we think about from our product. So a lot of people don't consume coffee after 12 because a lot of times you can't sleep well at night. So then you think about it from like a three-prong approach. It's like a lot of times people drink coffee in the morning to help wake them up, but all it is just prolonging when they get tired. But if they consume it too late, then they can't sleep, and if they can't sleep, then they wake up tired again. And so it's like where can you? And I think the brands that are doing really well are saying, okay, we're helping you solve one portion of that. They're maybe not solving your entire cycle, but some are saying, okay, we can help you with sleep, or some are saying that we can help you wean off of coffee. I think for us, what we've really tried to focus on, and what we're focusing on, is trying to be that alternative or added function to your day that you don't that that you're looking for, but you don't necessarily understand, and that's the hardest part. So
Right.
in your space, like, and I know this because we have a lot of tech. We use a lot of tech during to do our job, and there's some things that suit really well, and then some things that you just like struggle, and you have to try to figure out how to use. And the companies that can make that streamline is really easy. But if you think about being dehydrated, in the case of dehydration, like a lot of times you don't know that you're dehydrated, you just have a headache, right?
Right.
So a consumer that we have to talk to has to understand that that headache is actually because they're dehydrated, or their stomach hurts, and or their bowel movements aren't great, and so they need more prebiotics. But they have to understand that the reason they've been constipated for 3 days is that they probably haven't drank enough water and they're not consuming the right thing. And there's weird things to talk about, but it's that consumer has to have a
That's
little bit,
smart.
and that's where we have to try to educate. Yeah, that's the weird education. It's not even on the fruit, it's actually on the which consumer, and that's about finding that niche consumer that really understands that pain point that they're trying to solve, and trying to solve it with natural, um, with something natural, because there's all sorts of pharmaceuticals that have been invented just to help with this. And so
Right.
that's what's different in our space. And I assume in tech it's kind of going through this, because I know you talked about AI in another one of these, and I think now people are trying to figure out how to solve everything without even a system, but how do you solve it, with an AI?
In the CPG space, let me actually take it back for a second. When I interview a lot of VC partners, um, they're saying that in the early stages of fundraising, when they invest, they really have to connect to the founder. It's actually the founder is actually more important than the technology itself. Do you think that is true to CPG as well in early stage fundraising?
Yeah, I would say, I'm almost going to say maybe more, but it's probably about the same. I think for CPG especially, it's a roadmap that people, or it's a history in our space. So I think this first go around in my case is really important in demonstrating my execution capabilities, because I think where I see a lot quicker investment is people that have done it more than once, because this is a roadmap space more than anywhere else. And it's probably, I don't, this is where I would be interested. I don't know, because I feel like techs can be very different. Whereas in CPG, if you have the path to market and you get it accomplished, I think it's rinse and repeat at a different scale. And I've seen that with multiple companies where these founders come in, and there's multiple examples of this, that they come in, did it once, figured out they have all their systems in place, and then they do it again. So that's been really attractive in our space. I think they have to know that somebody is willing to grind. I think this is a different grind than other spaces. This isn't like 10x exponential growth in 2 years. It's 7 to 10 year play. And so they got to know people have the patience and determination to
Right.
and enjoy selling. I think in ours, we enjoy selling a lot. Pretty much every CPG founder I've found that's doing well likes to sell their product, which is good and bad, right? Because they're selling the product, not the story. Or maybe they like to sell the story and not the product. But I think you have to be uh, forward and wanting to sell. And I think the more, especially in the future, you're willing to be out in front of the founder brand, like you are the founder and the brand is kind of synonymous, is becoming even more prevalent.
So when investors are looking at you, they know in your space that it's a 5 to 7, even more years play. It's not going to happen in 2 to 3 years. And they really need to trust in your ability to execute over time and not give up.
Yeah, I think more so in CPG for sure. I can't imagine there's, I was trying to think of an example of 2 to 3 years. No, most people it's a 5 to 7 at minimum. Just because there is a building of, it depends on what your product is, but say it's like in our case, powdered, right? If you start to build your online and then move into retail, well, those two are completely different
Right.
paths, go to market strategies, and each one takes a different amount of time. Uh, and to build a brand in our space takes a lot of time and then authenticity from the consumer's understanding and then believing in it. Because we were selling against other products that even when you got into the retailer, people would say, "Oh, we drink this stuff at this store." They still wouldn't know the brand. So there's like a whole level of getting to where your popular people are buying it, and then the last
Right.
level of where they like are. It's become synonymous with whatever they purchase. So I think that takes time. Um, yeah. So
So we spoke about a lot of very, very important things today. We spoke about storytelling, we spoke about grind, we spoke about focus, um, the the long play of the space. You really have to prove that you can make it and be determined in order for investors to invest in you. What do you think worked well for you when first pitching Tiiga to your investors? If you had to pinpoint something, what would that thing be?
for me, it's been the hustle thus far. Because I don't think, and I think what you presented is actually right. Don't sell the product, sell the bigger stories. Um, and at the beginning, it's been me selling the idea that we don't quit. We can execute at this level. We can execute the next level. I think as we get into the next stages of fundraising, for me, what we want to demonstrate is that we have a strategy that we know that we can execute on a larger scale, and that um, it's it's a plan that we've thought through and we can back up with data. It doesn't have to be the best data, but we're backing this up with
Right.
saying we've put all these pieces in place. But I would say in the early stages, and we've had conversations, there's different groups that we're kind of a part of, and I've had some pretty, I would say open conversations. At the beginning, it's because in CPG, you're finding anybody that will believe in you, right? And it's you. It's not the tech or it's not these something else. It's do you have a good enough idea that people are buying it and purchasing it, and then can you go sell this? Because let's be honest, like a lot of the best brands aren't necessarily the best products, like in our space for
That's very
sure.
true.
They're definitely not the best ingredients, they're definitely not the best whatever. But if they can market the brand well and if they can market themselves well, then it has a really high likelihood of success. And so I think in that first stage, it's showing some sort of traction, and then showing that you're the person to do it is for sure the key.
Brilliant. Jeff, this has been an amazing conversation. I think that for all the founders who are tuning in to this episode and are in the CPG space, we just got so much powerful insight. And I encourage everyone to look at Tiga, look at their journey, look at their story. I found it fascinating, and that is why I reached out to Jeff and asked him to be a guest on the podcast, because it is really brilliant, and the product, by the way, is amazing. So try it. It's really good. It's really, really good, actually. I'm not just saying it. So,
That's
Jeff,
our
thank you.
favorite line, Moti.
Yeah, I'll repeat it
The
again.
actually, yeah,
It's actually really, really good. I'm not just saying it.
yeah.
Um, Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your insight. A lot of founders, I'm sure, are going to capitalize on it. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with Tiiga. And for all of you who are tuning in, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this session, and best of luck to all of you.
Thanks, buddy.